So, on August 25th, I posted a video on fish oil, and I was pretty excited about it. I thought the content was pretty good, and I was trying out a new editing style and was excited to see how you guys were going to react to it. But then something unexpected happened. Backlash. A lot of backlash. And after all the weird videos I've made over the years on some of the most obscure herbs on the planet, I'm getting backlash over fish oil. Now, I had planned on this video being kind of like an overview of the health benefits that are associated with consuming high amounts of EPA and DHA. However, I do think it is extremely important before I move on to do two things. One is to clarify the assertions that I'm making concerning fish oil, and the second thing I want to do is answer some of the most concerning and common objections that I receive concerning fish oil. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, my two primary assertions are as follows. One, that EPA and DHA are conditionally essential fatty acids. And two, animal products have historically been the only source of these fatty acids. And so essentially what I want to do is establish these assertions by answering some of the most common objections that I get. So let's go ahead and jump into the first objection. Now, the first objection that I want to address in this video is that fish oil is high in polyunsaturated fats and therefore unhealthy. Now, if you will remember from my last video on fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids are a type of polyunsaturated fatty acid, otherwise known as a PUFA. Now, there are a handful of categories of PUFAs. However, for the sake of our conversation today, we're going to focus on the difference between specifically omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids and omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids. Now, when one of these fatty acids enters into the body, they will eventually be metabolized into messenger molecules in the body known as eicosanoids. However, there is a major difference between omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 fatty acids in that omega-3s are metabolized into anti-inflammatory eicosanoids, whereas omega-6s are metabolized into pro-inflammatory eicosanoids. This is why omega-3 fatty acids are so valuable. They suppress the inflammation caused by the consumption of omega-6 fatty acids. The more omega-6s you consume, the more omega-3s your body needs to combat the cellular inflammation that is caused by omega-6 fatty acids. Now, the best data that we currently have seems to suggest for every gram of omega-6 fat that is consumed, a gram of omega-3 is needed to combat the pro-inflammatory effects of that omega-6. A 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s is typically recommended. Now, the issue here is that for every gram of omega-6 that the average American consumes, they consume only 5 milligrams of omega-3. This is 20 times less than what is needed and appears to be a major public health concern. Now, the next objection that I commonly hear is, why can't I just consume adequate amounts of ALA? Now, this question is typically asked by vegans, but it is a legitimate question. When you look at omega-3 fatty acids, you will notice that there are three primary forms: ALA, EPA, and DHA. Now, similarly, when you look at omega-6 fatty acids, there are also two primary forms: linoleic acid and arachidonic acid. Now, ALA is an inactive plant-based parent molecule that is converted by animals into active EPA and DHA, whereas linoleic acid is the inactive plant-based parent molecule of the active fatty acid arachidonic acid. Now, the issue here is that the enzyme that is used to convert linoleic acid into pro-inflammatory arachidonic acid in humans is the same enzyme that metabolizes ALA into anti-inflammatory EPA and DHA. The issue here is that linoleic acid tends to hog this enzyme, making it nearly impossible to convert any ALA into EPA and DHA. And this is why the conversion rate of ALA to EPA is estimated by some researchers to be less than 1%. This means that under the condition that an individual is consuming any dietary linoleic acid, dietary EPA and DHA become conditionally essential to combat the pro-inflammatory effects of omega-6 fatty acids. And this becomes especially important when you consider that the average American consumes roughly 15 grams of linoleic acid per day and only 200 milligrams of EPA and DHA. Now, the ironic thing is that linoleic acid is found almost exclusively in plant oils, which means that the only population that doesn't require dietary EPA and DHA is, ironically, carnivores. This is because they are the only population that does not consume any linoleic acid. Dietary EPA and DHA only become necessary once linoleic acid is introduced into the diet through plant oils. Now, another objection that I typically hear in the same line of reasoning is, well, what about algae oil? Isn't that a good vegan source of EPA and DHA? And admittedly, yes, algae oil is a very good vegan source of EPA and DHA, albeit the only source. However, on a practical level, it is far more expensive than fish oil and has no clear benefit over fish oil. Now, my biggest point here is that no human has ever met their dietary omega-3 fatty acid needs through algae consumption. Historically, marine animals have been the only significant source of EPA and DHA. Now, I will say that if you are a vegan and are determined to remain a vegan, I would highly recommend two things. One, limit your linoleic acid consumption, and two, take an algae oil supplement. Doing both of these things will improve systemic cellular inflammation. Now, the last objection that I want to address in this video is the claim that all fish oil research is industry funded and therefore can't be trusted. And to some degree, this is true. There is some industry-funded research. Now, because it is literally impossible to address this objection without diving super deep into the research, I am going to kind of use this as a springboard for our next video, where we're going to walk through all the most important research on fish oil, as well as the benefits that are associated with fish oil intake, as well as talk about briefly some of the dosing options and the side effects to look out for. Now, one of the bigger objections that I wasn't able to get to in this video specifically was the objection of the oxidation of fish oil, and we are going to cover that in our next video as well. Now, I do consider fish oil to be one of the 4 foundational supplements, and so if you are interested in checking those out, I recently made a free guide that you guys can find a link to in the description, as well as a link to the complete hormone optimization guide. And I would highly recommend, if you guys are kind of just now getting into the fish oil conversation, I would highly recommend getting an omega-3 fatty acid test so that you're able to get a baseline and kind of figure out how much you should prioritize your EPA and DHA intake. There's also a link down in the description for that. But other than that, guys, I think that's about it for this video, so definitely be looking out for that next video here in the next 2 weeks, and I will see you guys next time.
We full of life, you keep the change, keep the change.